If you take a look to the release history of some game apps such as Steam, you realize that most studios never get to ship their second game. Most of them ever ship just one. The studio started by a bunch of motivation and passion. The people working on it did everything they could, and they finally managed to publish their first game. Maybe they got a little bit of luck and the game went very well. Others didn't. The ones that didn't probably got demotivated and didn't continue. The ones that did thought they could make a next one, and they gathered the little amount of money they got from that first game and try to make the second one. But through the process, they realized it wasn't that easy. The pressure of the first game, the mistakes of the past, everything combined with a lack of structure suddenly made that second game never come to the market. Unfortunately, this seems to be the most common pattern on indie studios. But you see, this doesn't seem to be a talent problem or a creativity problem. Actually, many of those games could still actually be very good. This is mostly a structural problem. You see, the team is used to just building a game, and that's what they aim for. But they're not thinking about how to build a studio. And without the idea of building a studio from the beginning, they managed to build their first game. But then everything slowly crumbles down. Because most of those teams create a project, but they don't create a repeatable system. And because of what they're lacking, that first game consumes everything. Their motivation disappears. They now have pressure from developing or releasing something as good as the first thing they created. They still believe it has to be a big hit, and if the first one wasn't a big hit, they feel already a lack of motivation because of thinking they're not good enough. And if none of this is the problem, then there's burnout. They work super hard. They got so excited of the first game, they start working on the second one without having a specific structure. They just work through the game as much as they can. They push harder than ever. They eventually burn out. And then they cannot finish the game. Their energy is not there. Their brain is somewhere else. They have to work on other things. When everything depends on just one project, pressure becomes enormous. And step by step, motivation collapses. Without a production process, the ideas and the features live in their heads. There's no documentation, which makes the scope expand quietly, and also makes every time that there's a risk just to postpone it until a point later in the future. And because milestones are also unclear, this moment when the risk comes is just too much. The team, after a hard push, might be able to finish the game, but by the cost of exhausting their whole process, there is, in the end, nothing reusable for their next project. No resources, no ideas, and no learnings. Maybe you might know already a studio that's passing through this, or it might even be your own. A studio that's not built for sustainability, where their process for development that starts with a thought of making a game that might take a year ends up being a 4 to 5 year project. The revenue that comes out of the game is modest when the team was expecting a big hit that might help them continue into the future, which also makes them lose motivation. There's no iteration speed. Instead, every time there's a deadline, there's a rush, and then there's the recovery time. It just gives stress because of everything else that needs to be done. Without a structured speed process. This slow development makes the whole structure fragile.